right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Genesis Story Podcast. It's our first ever episode of the Genesis Story Podcast.
Big things happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
big things. And it's happening on a Monday. So this is really good.
Yeah.
We're just wanting to sit down and kind of recap what's been happening with Genesis Church. We planted this church probably about 2 months ago, and we had a really successful interest meeting. We've been having our team connects and meeting up on Sundays and Wednesdays, really forming a good group, a good solid group. So
awesome.
It's good to record the history of our journey and kind of give you guys some updates on what's been happening. So I know we have an interest meeting coming up, Pastor Roray.
So October 5th, on a Wednesday night, we're honing in on the location. It'll be out in a couple of days, so you might want to follow that on social media. And so just going to have a night where for about an hour and a half, we get together, hang out, share our vision, get to know people. And the invitation is for people to come join the team. Right now, we are in the pre-launch phase. So about 6 to 8 weeks ago, we had our very first interest night. And in that time, we've probably added about 25 team members. And so we're really excited about that. It's been great. We started having Team Connect worship on Sunday mornings. And God has just been doing some really incredible things during that time.
Yeah, it's been good, and it's good to see where the future of Genesis Church is leading. Having
Absolutely.
these interest meetings, these team connects, it's just like a small glimpse into what Genesis Church is forming to be. So it's been really good.
That's right. Yeah.
So a little bit of what we wanted to kind of discuss today is just recapping what I guess we'd call it a series because we've been doing it for a few weeks now.
Yeah.
It's been really awesome, and we kind of want to touch on some highlights of that series. You introduced the idea of Make the Trip, right?
That's right.
That was it, and it was such a really awesome idea. I know when you came to me and you were like, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing Make the Trip," I was like, "I love that," because no matter where we're at, we've all been on a trip, we're all going on a trip, a path of life, whatever it is. So I think there's a lot of angles that you can approach that idea of making a trip. So
absolutely. So a little setup on it for those of you watching is the idea is that God spoke to the children of Israel that they were about to come out of Egypt, and God sends Moses and he says, we're going on a journey and I'm going to bring you into the land that I promised Abraham 400 years ago. And so the book of Exodus is this story of this group of people making the trip. And so we've kind of taken that and we've tried to apply lessons from their journey to the journey that we're on in planning this church as a team. And so it's been really incredible how God has kind of brought all this together. I had a rough idea in mind of kind of where we would go, but every week God has just kind of unfolded some new angles and things that really apply to where we are right now. And it's just been awesome. And so
yeah, and I know like in that first week that you spoke on Make the Trip, your first point or first perspective that you were going with is how we pack for the trip. And
yes.
that was really symbolic. I really enjoyed that because, I don't know, I think about going on a trip and that, like you said, and when you spoke, there's always you pack too much if you actually go on a trip and you have to pay for more baggage at the airport.
Right.
And it's more money and you're just trying to tote all these things and stuff as much as you can. You overpack, you overplan. And that's so true for me. I always want to be over prepared for what I do. And I think that reflects a lot into moving forward. You don't want to pull all this from the past. Sometimes you really do have to put that back behind you and move forward. And I know that that's exactly what we're going to do with Genesis Church.
Yes.
We want to move forward into these doors that God's opening for us.
Absolutely. Dave Ramsey always has this saying that I love, and I love to tell it to people and pass it off as if it's my own.
Okay. Well, I love Dave Ramsey. He always has some good lines there.
But his statement is that there's a reason that the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
It's because you're supposed to spend more time looking at where you're going than where you've been. And so there are times in life where we need to reflect and where we need to look back and we need to take lessons from the journey. But the idea is that we need to look ahead. And the reason for that is we need to pack light so that we can move into the thing that God is calling us to. So in that sermon, I revealed some deep, dark secrets about myself that when I go on trips, I always take too much stuff. you know, whether it's a weekend trip or a week-long trip, I'm always like, oh, I'm gonna pack light this time. And like I come home and half of my bag is unused. I brought all this stuff that I didn't need. I thought I needed it, but I really didn't need it.
I'm the same way.
And so I think we all are.
Yeah.
And the reality of that is that when God calls us on a journey, there's a lot of stuff that we think that we need that we really don't need.
Yeah.
And really sorting through what things do I need to carry on my journey? You know, what things are really necessary to get me where God's called me to. And so for me, in my thinking through that passage, I notice how Israel, God tells him, he says, you know, grab your staff, you know, put on your belt, keep your shoes on when you eat the Passover dinner, because this night God is going to pass through the land, and you're going to be released faster than you know, faster than you ever imagine. All this is going to unfold. And so if you're holding on to all of these things, you have to imagine from the perspective of the Israelites. You know, they're being asked to leave their homes, and we all have our favorite things.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're packing the bag, so to speak. And God says, no, I don't even want you to pack that stuff. He's like, I want you to pack light, because I'm going to move quickly. And when I move, you have to be ready to move.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you don't have time to fill a U-Haul. You don't have time to get all of those things that are sentimental to you, because he says, I'm going to call you out of the land, and I'm going to bring you to a land that has better stuff than where you've been living. And so the more that we hold on to that old stuff, the more we are delayed from arriving to the place and to the things that God has called us to.
Yeah, and you know that's a really hard thing to do, you know, because that's hard to give over that kind of control. You know,
Absolutely, yes.
For me, man, I'm a hoarder. Okay, like if you gave me a note in 6th grade saying, "Hey, you rock," I still have that note. You know,
Yeah.
like I want to hold on to those things. You know, they have
That's
memories. But yeah, that's such a hard thing to do, to let God have control over those things. You know, if He's giving you those instructions of, hey, you need to pack light, and you're thinking, no, I have the sentimental, you know, link to this thing.
Yeah,
I'm going to hold on to it, but He knows what's best. And maybe we don't understand or see why we need to pack light in the moment,
absolutely.
but further in the journey, we're going to understand, oh, okay, I see why I needed to pack light. You know,
Absolutely.
this mattered more than those sentimental things. The call was greater than those
Yes,
those objects, those things that we're carrying on to, mentally, spiritually, whatever they may
that's
be.
right.
But speaking of that, also, there was another great point too that you made with Make the Trip that also really resonated with me, was just about, it was in week 3,
Mhm.
that we are not enough. That
That's
that
right.
that was, I think that one, I think, took a lot of people by surprise at first, you know, because that's not a message that you quite often hear.
Absolutely.
You know, most of the time you're hearing, I am enough, you know, like
That's
I am
right,
enough
yeah.
for whatever, on every Hobby Lobby pillow that exists out there, that we're enough, you know,
You're
we're not, we are enough, you know, but we don't ever hear the opposite of that, which is I
Yeah,
am not enough. So
that's
can you
right.
like break that down for anyone that might be listening?
Yeah, so you know, it's kind of the culture we live in that wants to tell you, man, you be yourself, do your thing. You know, you're a beautiful flower, bloom. You know,
Mhm, yeah.
you have everything that you need, and the reality is that that's partially true, but it's partially not true, because God will put us in circumstances to show us that what we have will not get us where we're going. He'll purposely do it, and that sounds cruel. It's actually the grace of God and the kindness of God. So this is what He does with Israel: is they come out of this place called Elam, where, you know, it's more than enough. They have wells, water. There are 12 wells there, one for each tribe. You know, everybody's got enough. There are palm trees. They're in this literal oasis, and God calls them to come out of it. And as they're following Him, they start looking at their supply, and they're like, man, we don't have enough food to make this journey. And so they get upset. They're frustrated. They're like, you know, we'd rather be back in Egypt and die than be right here. You know, did God bring us out here to kill us? I mean, like, well, you know, where are you, God? Like, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But it was all a setup for God to show them that what you have is not enough to make the trip. You're never going to get to the promised land just relying on what you have. So Does God want to use your giftings and talents? Absolutely, but they're not enough. Does God want to use your resources? Absolutely, but they're not enough. Does God want to use all that stuff? Of course he does, but he also sets this up to show them that man shall not live by bread alone. That's the resource they do have, but by every word that proceeds out of my mouth. In other words, you need me. And so this whole setup here, it's like a trampoline. The more that you understand that I am not enough, it's a downward trajectory. It's a humbling trajectory. The more I understand that, the more I realize that he is enough. And that's what happens in the manna situation is they're hungry and they're starving. And sorry about that. First podcast, I didn't silence my phone. Notes for next time. So, it's humbling them that they don't have enough, but at the same time, it's showing them that when they don't have enough, God does have enough, and that he will rain bread from heaven in the moment when they're not enough. God will show up with the right stuff at the right time to be their provider, to be their Jehovah Jireh. And so there is this trajectory. You humble yourself and you'll be exalted, right? Yeah. But if you exalt yourself, you'll be what? You'll be humbled.
Right.
And so it's that whole dynamic that's at play there that we do need to realize, that it's not just, planning a church or reaching a community or fulfilling my calling is not just about my skills and talents. It's about my reliance on God, because he is enough and he will always be enough to get me where I'm going.
Yeah, I see. And then that's it in itself. I mean, and I'm so glad that we've had these Team Connects on Sundays, because they are geared towards us as a team getting together, growing, and how can we be better for our community.
That's right.
That's what we've all talked about. And with this, especially with this particular part of Make the Trip, I also, when you were teaching this, I was thinking about kind of also how like the body of Christ,
Sure.
We always try and either upsize or downsize different portions of the team.
Yeah.
But in reality, every part of the body is essential, as the scripture says, and that's the same for this team. No matter what you're doing, it's all important to furthering the cause of Genesis Church.
That's
it's
right.
to equip others. It's to reach our community. Same thing for this. It's not a matter of, well, who's going out to get the manna and who's going to be the one that gets this group together. It really is. It's a team effort.
Sure.
And I appreciated that part of it too, or that's how I, spoke to it. But also, when you first were talking about Make the Trip, I remember I told you, I was like, oh man, that's so marketable, because, I think about a road trip and, how much you have different roles of people in the road trip. Like, you've got the person that's the driver, and they're gonna get us there. That's who that is. You've got the person in the front seat to keep the driver awake. They've got the map, and they're trying to help the driver. And then you got the people sleeping in the back that have the snacks from the gas station that you stopped at 2:00 in the morning.
Yes.
But it's the same thing with Genesis Church. I mean, like, we all have different roles, but we're all gonna get there if we pack light and we move forward.
That's right.
We all function in the role that God has called us to be. And although we ourselves as humans may not be enough, God makes us enough.
That's right.
And so I really, really liked week 3.
Yeah, he always makes a difference. And really week 3 perfectly kind of led into week 4. And in week 4, I talked about it takes a team to get there.
There you go.
So it's a beautiful picture in following Exodus 17 into 18, and there's actually 2 pictures of teamwork that happens there. First is, when the Amalekites come and attack Israel, and Joshua, he's the general, he takes all the soldiers out down on the battlefield, and they're down there fighting, and Moses is up on the hillside praying, and the scripture says they realize that when Moses raises his hands, they win, right? While he's in the posture of prayer, they're winning. And when his hands fall, they start to lose. So Aaron and Hur are with Moses, and they realize, like, we have to hold up Moses' hands. Like, he's getting tired, he's getting weak, his hands are drooping. And so they shoulder up under, and they begin to lift up Moses' arms. So it's a beautiful picture, because they win the battle against the Amalekites, but it's because there's a Joshua on the battlefield. It's because there are soldiers fighting with Joshua. It's because there's a Moses who's praying. But, if you remove any one of those people from the picture, there's no victory. Moses, if he's praying and Joshua and the soldiers are not down on the field, what's he praying for?
Yeah.
Right? What's he interceding for? If they're fighting and Moses isn't praying, they're fighting, but they're losing, right? And if Aaron and Hur are not there, Moses can't pray. So all of them need each other. Everyone is necessary in the recipe for victory. And God shows them this, and they come out of it, and this incredible thing happens. So Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, comes along, and he's watching how Moses operates among the children of Israel. So every day Moses goes out and he sits in like a throne, like a chair, and everybody who has issues, they all come to him, and they they bring their disputes, their arguments, like kids coming to a parent,
Yeah.
and all day long Moses sits there and he's talking to these people, trying to resolve their disputes. And at the end of the day, Jethro looks at Moses, and I feel like Moses was like, what do you think? Like, look how important I am, like I've got this thing handled, I'm the leader. And Jethro looks at him, he says, Moses, this is not good. You can't do this alone. He said, this is too heavy for you, and you'll wear yourself out and they'll get worn out, and none of you will make the trip. He said, what you have to do is, he said, you have to appoint leaders and empower other people to do what you're doing. And he said, and I love the scripture in Exodus 18, he says, and if you will do this, all of these people will make it to their place. He says, if you'll stop hoarding the power out of self-importance, and you'll empower people around you, and you'll employ people around you and get them involved in the ministry and ministering to the needs of the people, he said, you'll all make the trip. And I love this, because what was happening is there's a bottleneck at the top of Israel. Like every day there are thousands of people leaving with needs that are unmet because it's about one person. But when it becomes about a team, suddenly there are needs that Moses can't meet that everybody else that is involved and empowered can now meet. And people are ministered to at a higher level because Moses got out of the chair and let somebody else sit in it.
Ooh,
so it takes a team to make it. And I love that about our church. It's one of our values. We do things as a team. We equip other people. Yes. That's down at the heart. The purpose of the fivefold ministry in Ephesians, it says, is to equip the saints. It's not to like lord over God's heritage and look at me, I'm the man of God, bless God. It's not that.
Yeah.
It's our job in ministry is to help people to become empowered and to fulfill the ministry. Yes. Because there are people that I can't reach, there are people that you can't reach. Yeah. But as a team, there are people that we can reach.
That's right. Oh, yeah. man. Ooh, we speaking on a Monday morning.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. Okay, so here's the deal though. I like you say that, and it took me back to like, I don't know, like the most simplistic Sunday school message that I remember, and it was like, you want to live a joyful life, and they would always say joy, Jesus, others, yourself. We've kind of swapped those around, and we've made a lot of Christianity about ourselves. Mm-hmm. But really, if God is the most important thing in your life, you will realize that other people and his children,
that's right.
You'll put them before yourself. I don't know. I think that's especially important for this, because it's not a one-man show. It's not about any particular group of people. It's just that we have this team, and this team together is working, and we are going to reach our community, the people outside, right, and we're going to welcome them in with open arms. And that's the whole point of Genesis Church. And I really love that breakdown. I think that that's just a beautiful message of what we're doing here.
Absolutely. So, and we're excited. It's important from the beginning to lay the right foundation in our culture and in our understanding and in setting the tone for who we want to be. What we want to do at Genesis Church is maximize ministry. It's not all about numbers, but it is about maximizing ministry. And, I told the story on Sunday that prior to this, I've pastored two different churches. One was in Floresville, Texas, and the other one was in Flagstaff, Arizona. So in Floresville, small town, smaller than Flagstaff, we moved there. There was 20 people or so that elected us pastor, and we grew quickly there. Yep. I mean, like God blessed us, and within like a year, we were running around 100 people. Our building was full. It was like, man, like pastoring is easy. Like this, all you got to do is show up. Like, man, it's easy. But the reality is, after the Lord moved us and we went to Flagstaff, we planted a church there, and it was just my wife and I and our two kids at the time, and we moved there without a team. And what was easy in Floresville was exceedingly difficult in Flagstaff. And the reason for that is, like, I was praying about it, like, God, why do we have so much success there? And God revealed and showed me that it's not about you. It's about the team that's around you. And what we had in the first church that I pastored was about 4 or 5 young couples that worked together. They were very strong. We fellowship, we did life together, we loved each other, we were very connected. What we had in Flagstaff was not that. And so it was my wife and I doing everything, like I love to tell it, like I would play the guitar and sing and lead worship, and she would play the piano, and then she would jump off the piano and run back to the back of the church and teach Sunday school while I was preaching. And I'd get done preaching, I'd like give the wink or the signal, and somebody would go get her, and they would bring her back in, and like she would come back like on the piano, like it's like a puppet show. We're everywhere doing everything because we didn't have people to hand things off to. And here's the reality is, like, that's not a sustainable model for maximizing ministry. That's what God taught me. And so when we set out to plant Genesis Church, I told God several things. Number one, I needed him to confirm it clearly. If you want us to plant a church, you've got to confirm it. And two, you've got to bring a team around us, the right team of people. And I'll know it's at your will, because if we're really going to do this and reach our community and bring a church that breaks through some traditional molds and reaches people, and introduces people to the presence of God, if that's who we're going to be, it's going to take an awesome team. And it's one of the things I'm most thankful about is in this season, God has already brought a team around us, better than any team we've ever had. But we're about halfway there. We're on our way to 50 team members before we launch.
That's right.
And I just believe that God is bringing together a team. That might be you watching. Yeah. You might be sitting there feeling a burden and feeling God tugging on the strings of your heart, and maybe you're called to be a part of our team. And so we're inviting you, at least come check us out. You never know.
Yeah. So we have our next interest meeting coming up, so you can come hear about us and what we're all about and what we have planned, and we would love to have you. Our team is growing currently, and Genesis Church is unfolding as we speak. So
yes, we're on our way.
It's been good.
We haven't made the trip, but we're on our way.
That's right. We're almost there. GPS is still calculating. We're getting there. We're getting there.
That's right.
But anyway, so but man, it was so good to sit down for our first Genesis Story podcast, kind of recap what we've talked about the future events we have coming up. So we'll have to catch the next one.
Sure.
But yeah, it's been good. So thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for our next one.
All right, God bless you guys. We love y'all.